Obviously, everybody is watching world affairs at the moment, and anyone who knows anything about history is a bit apprehensive right now, Senator, about everything going on, several different conflicts, several different fronts, and it looks like several conflicts to come. In the United States of America, Americans don't like this now. We don't have any money, Senator. We don't have any money. I have this thing that I tell everyone every time there's a headline of we're doing something, that we're borrowing money for that. We're borrowing money for the carrier groups. We're borrowing money for the border. We're borrowing money for everything. We don't have any money left. And Americans can't accept that we are going to have a different role going forward in the world, aren't we?
Yeah, if you want to look at how much money comes in and how much money goes out, we have about enough tax revenue coming in to pay for Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and food stamps. Now, you could choose to pay for some other things, but basically the entitlements consumes all of the revenue. So every bit of what we spend on our military, about $850 billion, is borrowed. All $700 billion that's non-military discretionary, which is welfare programs, it's all borrowed. And we are in a bad place. So the people who say, why don't you want to send more money to Ukraine? My point is, well, we would have to borrow it from China to send it to Ukraine. And even though my sympathies are, against the people who have aggressively invaded Ukraine, my first obligation is to my country, and it's to the national security of my country. So I think the debt is so enormous, the $33 trillion debt, that's our number one threat. I don't think an external threat is what's going to take down America. I think what may take us down is we destroy our currency, destroy our economy, and then we have civil unrest. That's more likely to be our downfall than it is that we'll be invaded by an external enemy.
Senator, I'm glad you brought that up, because it floors me how inevitable this is. And I know that sounds dark, but it's not a Republican or Democrat thing or middle or anything like that. Look, the exponential growth of the debt and being able to even service it, it's black and white. It doesn't matter your opinion, my opinion, anyone's opinion on it. It's coming. And no one in that town you work in, with the exception of you and like 4 other people, seem to acknowledge the fact that this is coming. It is coming. We are going off the cliff, and no one wants to talk about it. Instead, they just meet to decide where to send more money we don't have.
And it's accelerating. In the last 3 months, we borrowed over $1 trillion in 3 months. This is over $300 billion a month. We have never, ever borrowed the money at this rate. And this is a real problem. And people say, well, we've done it for a long time and we've been okay. Well, one of the things we're facing now is basically everybody's losing their purchasing power at an accelerating rate. And people say, well, it's 7%, it's 9%. But if you're on fixed income, that can be quite significant. Retirees, people that are lower wage earners, get really hurt by inflation. But there's also a danger they don't talk about, and that's the precipitous loss of the currency. So there are things that people call a black swan event. If you look at the stock market, people say that a lot of the downturn of the last 100 years happened on 7 days. So 7 days had downturns enough that they wiped out enough wealth to be most of the losses in the stock market occurred in 7 days. Because people can act irrationally when they become fearful, there may come a day when people say, well, gosh, we've always used the dollar as a reserve currency. We've always thought it was more stable, but they keep borrowing so much money. And even Europe, as socialized as Europe is, Sweden balances their annual budget. Germany balances their annual budget. Half of the European Union actually balances their annual budget. And we're running $1 trillion and a half every year, and it's only getting worse. Our interest payments are building up. So there is a point at which there is a point of no return, and a point at which maybe people give up and there's a catastrophic run on the dollar. That will be the calamity that leads to chaos if that happens. I can't tell you that's going to happen or when it happens, but I can tell you that I'm worried about it. And so the only way to fix these things is to begin now. So anytime people ask me for money for anything, I mean, it could be for Santa Claus's birthday. You want to do something everybody's for, pay for it. Take it from someplace that's less likely that we don't need it. So for example, if people right now want more money for Israel, I'll vote for that. If you take it from someplace we shouldn't be spending it. So we have about $1 trillion still in an Afghan reconstruction fund that were given to the freaking Taliban. We're giving money to the government of Afghanistan that 13 of our soldiers died on the way out. They were killed by the Taliban, and we still have money going over to the Afghan government. I would cut all that out. We still have money that we give to the Palestinian Authority. Why do we do that? We have foreign aid that we give to dictatorships around the world. We give $1 billion to Egypt that has a dictatorship, and you can be put in prison for dissent. They have indefinite detention in Egypt. You don't get any trial, and yet we give them billions of dollars. So if people think something is a more justified cause, and I'm horrified by the violence that happens in Israel, I'll vote for more money if it's necessary, but it's got to come from someplace else where it's less necessary. I said this in front of a Democrat chairman recently, and he responded by saying, we shouldn't have to choose. And it's like, that's what being a legislator is supposed to be about, is making choices. What is most important? Mayors have to do it. County judge executives have to do it. Governors have to do it because they have a limited amount of money. Everybody chooses every year and sets your priorities on where you're going to spend your money. And yet in Washington, it's the only place on the planet, no priorities are set. If it's a good cause, we'll give you money.
Senator, the book is Deception by Rand Paul. Go find out what your taxpayer money funded. Thank you, Senator. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jesse.